moments ago, President Trump making new remarks on Iran. Jackie Heinrich asking him where things stand right now.
Right on the borderline, believe me. If we don't get the right answers, it goes very quickly. We're all ready to go. We have to get the right answers. It would have to be a complete 100% good answers. And if we do, we save a lot of time, energy, and lives, most importantly.
Meantime, dramatic new video of Marines boarding an Iranian-flagged tanker that CENTCOM says is suspected of attempting to violate the U.S. blockade in the Gulf of Oman. Let's bring in retired Vice Admiral Mark Fox. His nearly 40-year career in the Navy includes his service as commander of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command. Admiral, it's great to have you on the show, as always. You think the president should restart military activities, reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I'm just curious, sir, how does that work exactly?
Well, you know, this president is unconventional, he's unorthodox, and he's unpredictable. And that's one of his strengths right now. I think he's been able to keep people off balance. I do think, personally, that there's no way in the world that we can accomplish all of our objectives in the region without having further combat actions. I just don't see how it can happen. But I've been wrong before. We'll see. The Strait of Hormuz actually is not closed. It's a matter of whether or not you want to take the risk to go through there. But we need to have full and open freedom of navigation very soon here so that we can allow the rest of the world to benefit from the energy that flows from that part of the world.
You talk about unpredictable. I want to put this up on the screen. This is the Iranian parliament speaker, Gallup, on Telegram today. He writes the following here. Our powerful military forces have used the opportunity of the ceasefire in the best possible way to rebuild our military strength. And with the grace of God and the support of the people today, they are so prepared that they will surprise the enemy and will certainly regret attacking Iran. It sounds like they're almost taunting the United States. Sir, what do you think about that comment?
Well, anything that comes out of the regime, the government of Iran is suspect. They're playing for time. They're trying to create as much opportunity for them to try to rebuild. Militarily, they have no capability. They have very, very limited ability to influence anything. At the same time, they do have some residual capability in small boats and with drones and so forth, which takes me back to I don't see how we can go forward and accomplish all of our stated objectives without having some return to full combat operations.
Yeah, I'm also kind of curious because there's been a lot of talk about Cargill and what happens. I mean, does it include this strategy going after Cargill and holding it at least? Maybe not destroying the oil wells, but holding it. And how long would that campaign last? I mean, does the American population have the patience for something like that?
I personally wouldn't recommend that we go and take Cargill. We can certainly disable their ability to load oil. You know, our campaign, the combat campaign that we had before, very carefully avoided certain target sets, which includes the electrical grid, their telecommunications, a lot of the things that we would call dual use. So there are certainly a number of other things that we are capable of striking, which are legitimate military targets. I would not recommend that we go and take Cargill. There are other options. There are other places that we can go that will create difficulties for the Iranians. I would not, though, plan or recommend that we take Cargill. Cargill is just a big industrial place that's just off the coast. It's not that far away. So if we took it, then there would be, you know, constant opportunity for them to take pot shots at us from the shore.
Yeah, I wanted to pose this to you lastly. This is from the Institute for the Study of War, saying, quote, other factors such as, but not limited to, a proven threat to regime stability could trigger a rethink among Iranian leaders about their negotiation positions. Iranian leaders have proven that they care little for the economic well-being of the Iranian people beyond the impact the economic well-being of the people has on the regime. I mean, it's one of those things, we kind of know this all along, sir, but it's worth restating that, you know, there's not a lot of concern for what's happened to the citizens, but there's a big concern about the IRGC and the Basij and so on and so forth.
Yeah, the Iranian regime has not changed their stripes. What I would expect if we go back into combat operations is that there would be other opportunities. I think in particular the Mossad has penetrated the Iranian regime fairly significantly. When you think about the capability that was demonstrated at the very beginning of the early campaign back in late February, early March, in which, you know, dozens of Iranian leaders were killed in the opening minutes. That's some remarkable capability, and I would fully expect that if we resumed combat operations, those people would also be in that list.
Vice Admiral Mark Fox, thank you, sir. We appreciate your time as always.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.